How's everyone doing? I'm Dan Yazerski. I'm here with the esteemed producer of the DPHO and Rothenberg show, RJ Santillo. RJ, how are you doing today?
Hey, doing great, Dan. Thanks for having me.
Hap- Happy to be here. I'm just pulling up these questions real fast. Here we go. All right. I always love to start the show with this question because everyone usually has a different answer. What advice would you give to college kids interested in joining this profession?
Keep your options open. Um, do everything. Do radio, do TV, do writing. Try different things. Podcasting, whatever it is. Being an influencer, it changes. But content is content. If you want to do anything, whether it's sports, entertainment, news, it's all content. People need content, and as long as you can be entertaining, or if you're embedded in something and can provide updates or worthwhile news, people will always find you and there'll always be a job. So get the content part down, network, keep in touch with people, and you never know where you'll end up.
I completely agree with that. I love listening to everyone because everyone has a different answer. Everyone gets to that position differently, and every way works. It just matters on how you want to do it.
Yeah, of course. People come from different backgrounds, different schools, different colleges, different cities, different markets, different parts of the country, different countries. Sometimes you never know who you end up in the same room as. Be a good person too. Be easy to work with. I think that'll take you pretty far too.
I completely agree with that. So, what I'm interested to hear this because I don't know if you self-produced in college, but I self-produce. What goes into producing a radio show like DPH and Rothenberg?
Oh yeah, I self-produced in college, hosted a show like a lot of people. I had to run in different rooms to dial the phone to get the guest on, then run back during the same commercial break. And the commercial breaks in college are like 90 seconds, and it's underwriting. They're not even sold half the time because it's a college station. And yeah, I remember all that. Then you got to
PSAs.
podcast it yourself. Yeah, PSAs. Um, uh, it's a lot different now because yeah, I mean, with what we have all the resources to do everything we can or want to do. I mean, having another set of hands now, like the first couple of years I was in this industry, it was just me. I would produce shows, do things all by myself, just like in college. So to have another set of hands, Ray, who I work with, he's awesome. It makes life a lot easier. I feel just a little spoiled every day just to have another person.
That's awesome. I understand like the self-producing of a radio show is such an underrated talent. If you can do it, it's a lot to do, but I think it's one of the most fun parts of having my own show.
Well, it only gets easier after that. I can tell you that.
Well, it helps because where Monmouth is in the studio there, they have the phone in the same room. So everything's in the same room, which makes it a whole lot easier to be able to self-produce, but it's still a lot. But the board is it's got a mind of its own sometimes, and that's I think the most fun part of it.
Well, like I said, though, content is content. You're learning content now, content will be the same 5, 10 years from now. So if you can entertain and you can bring people to you, they'll find you at some point.
What DPH and Rothenberg is a different show from the K show. What would you say the main differences are producing for a show like DPH and Rothenberg compared to producing for a show like the K show?
I would say the time of day is the biggest thing. I mean, all those guys are great on both shows. Love working with all of them. Consider them all friends. But the K show's a little more opinion based in that everyone by 3 o'clock, anytime you do something in the afternoon, whether it's TV, radio, whatever it is, a lot of people have the information already. They're coming to you for truly your opinion. And that's not to say people don't do that for the morning, but we're also sometimes reacting to a whole night's worth of news or games or anything that happened really from when people got home to when they wake up and go back to work or start their day or listen on their smart speaker, whatever it is they do. So we're also just trying to get all the information to people as they start their day and kind of get them up to speed. And I mean, but like I said, the content keeps people around, entertain people, and also mix in the opinion. So it feels like it's moving fast. It feels like there's a lot going on. We want to make sure we get to everything, make sure we balance like the fun with the new stuff, with the opinions, with the callers, with the guests. So it moves quick in the morning.
That yeah, I mean the whole night's worth of news is definitely it's a lot. It's nice that you guys have 4 hours now because it gets you guys get an extra hour to really talk about other things.
Yeah, it feels like we can kind of go a little deeper on stuff. Otherwise, we might have to gloss over, or some stuff we would never even get to if we were still 3 hours.
So I'll ask that in a little bit. But who is the coolest person you've talked to while producing your radio show?
Oh, I've been lucky enough to meet quite a few. I mean, personally, I've I mean, just recently I was in the same room as Derek Jeter. Got to ask him a question for like an internal work thing. I got to meet Joe Montana, which me as a Niners fan, which was unbelievable. It's something you never think you'll get to do. So to meet people like that that you grew up watching on TV. I mean, talking to the modern people, um, anyone that's in the game now is a joy because they're super relevant. But I think the ones that hit closest to home are the ones that I grew up watching or names I knew when I was a younger kid. And before I even worked in this industry, went to college, any of that stuff when I was a teenager. So anyone like that you get to bump into every now and again, or they call in on the phone. That's pretty cool.
Derek Jeter's had to be surreal because he's the Yankee, like he's every modern Yankee fan's Babe Ruth, I would say, in the sense of how
Yeah,
big he is stature wise.
yeah, I'm not sure I'll ever top that one. I think that was I thought Joe Montana would be the top of it for me. Um, yeah, getting to even that split second, just getting to introduce myself and ask him a question, just kind of non work related stuff. It's like yeah, it may not never happen again. I mean, Jeter's around a little more than he used to be media wise, but that's stuff that may never happen again. So definitely never take that for granted.
So I have to ask now, what question did you ask Jeter?
I asked him just based on how he led in his career. So I was always fascinated because it was a little um, um, interview style type forum where there were a couple hundred people there, and it was just based on his career and things like that. And he had spent some time talking about how he didn't like cocky people. So I was genuinely curious. How did you lead them with people that were cocky, work cocky? How did you know when to kind of ratchet it up? Because obviously, even he himself, you don't get there without being confident. So where did you identify that line between confidence and cocky, and how did you walk it, especially around teammates?
Yeah, it's unbelievable. Like for me as a Yankee, I got to watch him at the tail end of his career, so I'm more partial to Judge than I was Jeter, but he's a legend. He's probably the best Yankee to ever to play in the 90s. He was the best from that team. Everyone loves him. I don't think I've ever met a single Yankee fan that's like, I don't love Derek Jeter.
He did a lot for them, so that'd be a tough crowd if they were to say different.
I'm interested. They were trying to recruit him. I don't know if you saw this to be on the S network. My guess is he doesn't do it, but because there's that spot open with Cameron Maben, but that would be awesome if him and getting to watch him, Paul O'Neill, and Michael Kay do a broadcast would be pretty cool.
It would be. I think it'd be a lot of fun. I think if it happened, it might only be for a small handful of games, but I think those might be the most watched games of the year. So, I mean, aside from the actual game itself. So,
Yeah, and the thing with like him now is he wants to be back. He's showing an interest. Like he went away for a while. I think he needed it. Like the media was just so much on him. It looks like he's finally comfortable. Like after playing to come back and enjoy being a Yankee again.
well, I think there's something to that post playing career Yankee aura. Like, I mean, he was about all those old timers days, and he talked to all the former Yankee greats, and it's kind of cool to take a victory lap. He was famous for saying during his career that he never really stopped and smelled the roses. Like, this is a cool time to do it. People love you, they appreciate what you did, and you just get to be you. You don't have to do anything other than be you. And I think people appreciate that, even if he doesn't delve too far into details, personal or professional, or people just like hearing from him.
When you're when you're that much of a legend, that's what happens.
He is that, no doubt about it.
I don't know if you saw, but no practice for Lamar Jackson again. So that might affect your pick this week.
Yeah, I don't know how they beat the Bengals. Their defense since they got Roquan Smith has been really, really, really good. But they play even when they were winning, they play a lot of close games. I think John Harbaugh's an excellent coach. I think Lamar Jackson's an incredible talent. He's going to get a lot of money from them or somebody else. But it's clear he's not healthy. It's a tough spot to throw him into against a red hot Bengals team.
I completely agree with you on that. How many times a week would you say you hit the dump button?
If it's more than zero, it's probably too many. But I'd say maybe once or twice every week.
Who's the culprit?
Oh, Rick loves to walk that line, and Rick makes such a comfortable environment for the callers. Sometimes they find their way into that category as well.
I heard the one guy called after the Jets game, and he dropped a interesting word, and my favorite part of that is Dave's reaction, like, "Oh my god!"
It's the correct reaction. Not because we don't want to be fun, but there's certain things we can get a whole lot of trouble for.
Yep, the FCC is no joke.
Yeah, they don't take any days off.
Um, who's What's all right? Here's an interesting question. I was coming up because listening to the show, I like this one. What's crazier, Dave Rothenberg's fandom or Michael K's diet?
Dave Rothenberg's fandom, no doubt about it. It has no rules. I mean, in his mind, it has rules, but he's as loyal as they come to a fault. I think even he would say, but it has no boundaries. That fandom.
It's unbelievable. But K's diet's pretty crazy too.
Yeah, but I guess when you boil it down, it's simple. He doesn't like condiments. He doesn't like anything fancy. There's always an answer for that. I think it's yeah. Is he missing out on some fun foods? Maybe, but otherwise it's pretty simple at its core.
One of my favorite K videos is, I don't know if you were there for this, but was when he ate the Whopper.
Oh yeah, I was there. Yeah.
I would have, if I was producing, I would have been cracking up in the studio.
Well, the thing is, that wasn't even an act. He genuinely did not want to eat that Whopper.
Oh,
He was
I
concerned
know.
about it off the air. That was the real thing. I mean, it doesn't seem like much of a punishment to the average person, but he was absolutely dreading it.
Well, my favorite part is Don and Peter are eating Whoppers and just enjoying them while he's
Yeah, that's the
struggling.
average. That's the average person, right? That's most people.
Well, I know because this is now in recent vintage. This is all I see on commercials now is all the new BK commercials. They drive me crazy.
Oh, they got a cool jingle and everything.
I guess Kay loves it because Kay is always a Burger King guy. Just didn't like the Whopper.
And that hasn't changed. I can tell you that. I don't think he's had one since.
What would you say is your favorite experience from the shows you produced?
Um, a lot of stuff on air is fun and the laughs, but I would say just the off air hanging out before shows, in commercial breaks, where as much as we talk about the show and the content, how to run the show, stuff like that, just hanging out every day with a lot of these guys. You take a genuine interest in their life and their families and their kids, and it's like our little team. You hear players when they leave, they say, "What do you miss the most?" And they say, "I miss the locker room. I miss the guys." Not to say they don't miss competing or the great moments, the highs that you can achieve, but it's just the goofing around. I mean, sometimes when you get to adulthood, you don't get as much of that, and we can hang in the studio. We still hang and laugh at 5:30 in the morning together, and that to be able to do that at your job is that's special.
That sounds like fun. It's definitely nice. And that's the nice part is that even though you guys are so early in the morning, you guys still are having fun. Like there's not many people that are like that, and I give you guys so much credit for it.
Yeah, we're lucky to do it. I mean, even with the K show, we'd have lunch every day at 2:30 before the show after we got everything all buttoned up, and that was a lot of times that was the most fun we'd have all day. Those 20 minutes where we just kind of everything's all good to go, and you're not talking about the show necessarily, and it was that's some of the hardest I've ever laughed. Those 20-minute lunches. So
So what? Because obviously the pandemic affected all the radio shows. What would you say was the biggest thing that changed from being on, or maybe the different? I'll rephrase it. What was it like producing a radio show during the pandemic?
yeah, at the beginning there were no sports. So when you have sports show with no sports, that makes it tough. But people's habits have changed. Not everyone's going in, sitting in a car listening to us. podcast numbers are higher than they've ever been. So there's more immediacy to get what we do out and just be kind of omnipresent. Like, not be just a radio show, get the podcast out, promote the stream. For the show I'm on now and the show I was on, TV is a big part because people are home more than ever right now. So just be able to have people find you in different ways. Don't think of yourself as just a radio show. Oh, you're creating content. So whether it's radio or streaming, it's podcasting, it's TV. If you can, earn the opportunity to do that, be available. Just be available to people. Fit into their days. Don't make them fit into your days.
That's that's nice. And that's what I love the podcast because I don't wake up early. I'm not a morning person, but I love being able to first thing I'll do when I wake up is I'll probably throw on DPH with Rothenberg. It's an amazing show. You guys, whoever's watching this should really tune in. RJ does a great job producing and you guys do a great job. And I think that's the best part about it now is that radio shows didn't used to be like that, where they wouldn't be podcasts, but now you could go on the ESPN app and tune in, and it makes it a lot easier to listen to the guys, so you don't have to be forced to wake up early in the morning.
Well, thank you for listening. Yeah, I mean, like I said, we just try to fit into people's days. People are busy now, and people, I think, during the pandemic, they reprioritized. What life means to them, and as kind of macro as that can sound, and we're just trying to keep people company wherever that may be in their day.
If you had to pick one person from history, so say you're a show host, if you had to pick one person from history to interview, what person would you pick and why?
Oh, I probably would pick. This is sports related, or this is just anybody?
Anyone.
Oh, I'd have to really do some thinking on that, but I would say anyone in the entire world. I would pick a. Not sure which one. I'd have to really sit down and delve through this, but uh, a past president. I would. I mean, if it were on some kind of airwave, obviously you're only going to get so many answers. But I've always it's part of a different conversation, but I've always been curious of the National Treasure movie, type secrets out there about what certain situations what actually happened and the thought process that went into making decision X and timeline Y and things like that. So someone that knows where all the dirty laundry is.
I couldn't agree more. That's a very interesting one. A lot of people usually go to like a sports or like an entertainment guy. Like there's some people I've talked to, like my friends and I, well, like Jimi Hendrix is always one that people always want to listen. Bob Marley, those kind of guys. But a past president is like someone I would definitely have wanted to interview. Do you
Oh, I don't
have
blame people for Jimi Hendrix. That's a great choice.
all right. So growing up, who were the people in the industry that you looked up to personally? Like for me, my biggest one, I look up to you. I look up to anyone at ESPN. Ian Eagle is always someone that I've looked up to, me wanting to be a sports broadcaster. Who would you say is someone you looked up to?
Oh, well, I appreciate that. That's incredibly kind. Hopefully I haven't disappointed you, at least not yet. I would say I listened to a lot of Colin Cowherd growing up. Not even necessarily that I always thought, oh, that's a take I would have, or that's a thought I've shared. I always thought he looked at things differently. I used to listen to him when he was on the middle of the day, at the same time roughly, but well, on ESPN, I thought that was really cool. Um, I like Scott Pelt. I've always liked SVP. Michael K was someone that I spent a lot of time listening to as a Yankee fan. It's true what they say about baseball teams and baseball announcers. You spend every night with them. They're in your home every single day. So getting to work with him was like a crazy like experience for me. But I would say that's a good group.
Yeah, I always like that. I always think that it's so cool that the people that you grow up listening to are really the ones that shape how you want to define your career.
Yeah.
Did so now have you met Scott Van Pelt or Colin Cowherd?
Never Scott Van Pelt. Colin occasionally, when he was with ESPN, would be on our floor, and there was never, I never got to ask all the questions. I guess I could have, but he was preparing for a show when I would come in, and whether it was just helping if his team needed anything when they were in. But I never got to actually sit down and have more of an in-depth conversation. But yeah, we've been in the same room a time or two, I guess you could say.
Nice guy.
Yeah, nothing but polite to everyone that was around.
I'm over time. Like I wasn't a big Cowherd guy at first because he was so against all the mainstream takes. But I feel like as time's gone on, I do enjoy listening to Cowherd during the day. I think he has a lot of good opinions to say.
Well, he puts the work in to be able to think differently. Like his prep is iconic. Hours before his show in, just looking things up, putting his thoughts together, getting his team together, gathering their thoughts, kind of building out the show. And I've seen it myself. Hours before their show begins, they're in. So I've always respected that.
That's nice. All right. Before we go over to sports, I have prepared. I've stolen your job. I've prepared a did it happen in Florida. I couldn't find the observations, but I didn't have enough time. But I feel like this one's going to be an interesting one. I hope you haven't heard it yet. But so on New Year's Day, a dramatic video capturing a handcuffed prisoners, a desperate attempt to escape the police car. He jumped out. I don't know if you've seen the video of this, and he was being transferred. The man kicks out the window, squirms his way out, and falls on the road. However, a cop obviously foils his attempt. Now, he got transported to the local hospital, but was getting transported and tried to escape the cop car. Just busted open the door, kicked his way out, and tried to get out in handcuffs. Now, I ask you, did it happen in Florida?
Oh, that's tough. You did a good job. There's no real tells there. I mean, there's no weather. There's no real geographical giveaway. Cool. Oh, you didn't think I'd be better at this? It's my own game. I'm going to say I'm going to say it did not happen in Florida. I feel like that could happen on anywhere on New Year's Eve, but it's really it could be anywhere.
You are correct.
Oh wow, lucky more than anything.
Los Angeles County.
Yeah, New Year's Eve is can I if you told me it happened on like May 2nd, then maybe. But
Uh, it's that's one of my favorite parts of the show because the stories are great. Like one of the stories where the guy tried to, I think the Louis Vuitton store, where he tried to rob the store and he tried to jump through the window.
and you ran into the window.
Yeah.
That's a good one. That's in the did it happen in Florida Hall of Fame. Yeah, ran into a clear window, knocked himself out, got arrested. Yeah, they're all real stories too. None of them are made up.
Oh,
Crazy stuff.
I know that's the best part. And then I don't understand like the clips of the Florida people is just like the intro to it. It's pretty. It's a great. It's one of my favorite segments.
Well, thank you, thank you.
And now, due to popular demand, you guys have a positive thing. Is that sticking or?
We'll see. Dave is trying to push that in there. We'll see if the positive feel good story of the week. We'll see it. We'll see if that sticks.
Well, you could obviously listen to that tomorrow. And I do want to switch over to sports. Um, Obviously, a lot of big news just happened last night. Carlos Correa going back to the Twins. With Correa going back, does that make the Mets the better team, or who do you think's better, Yankees or the Mets?
Oh, that is tough. I think the Mets are very similar to what they were last year. I mean, that's when they win 101 games. So I think they're right there again this year. Maybe even a little better. Maybe they get to 102, 103. With Degrom missing so much time last year, I wouldn't expect. I mean, Verlander's pretty sturdy. So, um, I man, they're right there. Yankees got Rodon. I'd probably say this exact second, man, they're about even. I would say. I guess it's kind of a cop out, but I think they're both like 104 ish win teams right now.
I think I'm more partial to the Yankees right now just because that 1 through 5, if everyone is clicking, it's the best rotation in maybe history. With I think Garrett Cole's gonna have a really good bounce back year. Rodon is a dark horse pick for the Cy Young. Cortez, another one was an all-star last year. Um, Frankie Montas and Luis Severino are guys, if they can stay healthy, are dynamic pitchers that could be a one almost anywhere else, or maybe even a two. So, I mean, with that rotation and Michael King getting back in the bullpen, hopefully a healthy Clay Home, Tommy Kahnle coming back is big for the locker room. He was a nice piece there, and they liked him a lot. I just don't see how the Yankees, um, I say win that division. I don't even know if the Mets are the best team in their division.
Yeah, I think that's fair. But I think if I were a Mets fan, I would fully expect them to win the division. But yeah, I know the Braves can be a handful, and obviously the Phillies went to the World Series. But yeah, I mean the Yankees, their rotation was lights out in the first half of the year. But I mean Montas was not good at the end of the year, so that's a concern. And I say that as a Yankee fan. And Severino, I mean, he's got a long laundry list of injuries at this point. So yeah, when he's healthy, he's fun to watch. But yeah, I mean, Rodon and Cole at the top. That makes life easier. And if I mean Cortez, it'll be a little tougher this year to replicate what he did last year. I mean, his career numbers are really nowhere near what he did last year, but he was a heck of a story. And slotting in as a three, I mean, that's a nice spot for him. So yeah, the Yankees will need him to be close to what he was last year if they want to get to where they want to go.
I also think the shift being banned helps a lot of the Yankee hitters. Like I think Rizzo, you'll see a higher batting average from. Gleyber Torres, I think that might change his whole approach completely because he can finally be that up the middle, gap to gap hitter that he needs to be instead of the power guy that I think a lot of people have expected him to be. Giancarlo Stanton, it helps because of how hard he hits the ball. He can hit the ball on the ground a little bit more. I think it's going to change their offensive approach. It's going to help them a lot more. And I think people
Yeah,
think,
I think it'll help a lot of teams. I always thought Mark Teixeira was a guy that got robbed of a lot of hits in the shift, and I think Rizzo's
yeah,
similar in that same vein. I think you're exactly spot on. His numbers will pop this year a little bit, as far as just from an average standpoint. But yeah, you're right. Guys that hit the ball hard, it's going to find more holes now. So the Yankees pride themselves in exit velo, so they hopefully find a few more holes.
the one guy I'm not confident in this year is I think a lot of Yankee fans are the same way as Josh Donaldson now. That's going to be an adventure.
Yeah, that's when I think Brian Cashman would tell you in an honest moment he'd probably want that one back.
I just I think because I'm a big Oswald Peraza guy and Volpe's going to be good too. I think they probably could have afforded just starting Peraza from the year.
Yeah, but the Yankees take pride in not bringing guys up until they're ready. I mean, we've seen them hold guys down in the minors for a little bit longer because of the weather, just to make sure that they're fully comfortable. So yeah, I mean, if I'm sure Cashman would have loved to have done it that way. It didn't work out, and they'll have to kind of swallow that contract for Donaldson for another year and hope he's better. I mean, he's getting paid so much money; they're probably not going to just swallow it and sit him on the bench. They'll just kind of have to deal at least to start the year.
It's not a situation you want to be in. Do you think Oswaldo Cabrera is their starting left fielder on opening day?
I think so. I've heard a lot of Brian Reynolds, and Brian Reynolds is a great player. But Oswaldo Cabrera, every time he was on the field last year, it seemed magical almost. He didn't even play the outfield before last year. He had 5 or 6 outfield assists, maybe
Yeah,
even a couple of more.
robbed a home
He
run.
looked, yeah, he looked comfortable, and he started their biggest games of the year for them. I think that's telling. I mean, to sit him down after that, I think would be a mistake. Let him build on an off season and see kind of what comes out the other end.
I agree with you. So obviously the NFL wild card playoffs are coming up this week. Your Niners are in it. I'm guessing you're excited about that. New York has to be excited. Unless you're a Jets fan, that's a tough situation. But Giants are in the playoffs. I think they're going to win this week. What are your picks this week? Who do you think goes to the second round in each game?
I would say the Niners beat the Seahawks. I think the Vikings and the Giants. I want to pick Minnesota because they're so comfortable in close games, but the Giants are the trendy pick, right? So I guess I would take the Giants, and yeah, I want to pick against the Cowboys, but I do think the Cowboys find a way to get this one done. I know that Tom Brady's never lost to the Cowboys, but I think Dallas. I just think they're the more talented bunch, and I think McCarthy's in trouble if they don't win this game. So I think there's a lot of urgency there. Um, In the AFC, I would take Buffalo, obviously over Skylar Thompson and the Dolphins. I would take Cincinnati over what I wonder how healthy is Lamar Jackson and the Ravens. And I think the Jags beat the Chargers.
I think that's going to be the best game of the week. Herbert and Lawrence, that's going to be an epic clash. I just have that feeling.
Yeah, the Jags are rolling. I wouldn't bet against them right now.
And I don't know why Brandon Staley, but he stupidly played Mike Williams. He played all the starters, and now Mike Williams is out for I don't know.
I think he could play in that game, but he is banged up. You're right about that. Yeah, Brandon Staley's got himself backed into quite a pickle. So I don't know that he's fully safe even if he this game is close. I think if he wins, it'd be tough to get rid of him. But even if this game is close, a tight loss, I'm not saying he would get fired, but I don't know that he's fully safe.
If I'm the Chargers, I want Sean Payton there, and I want him there ASAP.
Yeah, I think a lot of teams would be. I think if the Cowboys have an ugly loss, I think that call gets made. I mean, they have Dan Quinn in house, but yeah, it'll be interesting. Sean Payton's going to land somewhere.
I think, but if you're Sean Payton, do you think the allure of having a guy like Justin Herbert, who is probably the best quarterback, if Staley gets available to work with in that roster, I think that was where I would want to go.
Yeah, I think you're spot on. And he's in Los Angeles doing some work for Fox already, so I think you're right.
Let's see. All right. Do you think Brock Purdy is the long-term answer for the 49ers? Since you're a
Lo-
49ers fan.
Yeah, I guess it's tough to project too far out. I think him and Lance will have a chance to compete next offseason. I think it means Garoppolo's gone, but if Purdy goes and wins a couple of playoff games, I mean, it's going to be tough. I'm not saying Lance couldn't get the job back at some point, but it's going to be tough to not go into next year with him as a starter if he looks good in these playoff games. I mean, that he's got a lot around him. He's got a lot of talent to work with, but he's doing what they need him to do. I think he's tied for the league in league lead in touchdown throws since he became the Niners starter. I mean, it a lot of, like I said, a lot of talent around him, but it's tough to take away what he's doing. If he goes and wins playoff games, I don't know how you move on at least to start the year.
I completely agree with you on that. I think the thing with I I think Lance is probably the more talented option. I mean, he's got all this talent, and I took him at the number 3 overall. But sometimes the better quarterback for the system wins out, and I think Purdy is better for the system than Lance may be at this exact moment.
Yeah, Purdy doesn't have the gifts that Lance does, but what he does have is he started all 4 years at Iowa State, and Lance has only played 1 year as a starter since high school. So that's a big jump, and I think that shows at the NFL level.
I couldn't agree with you more. Now, back to the picks because I forgot to ask you. Do you know what games Rick's picking right now so I can stay away from those or take the
I do,
opposite?
I don't just yet.
Oh boy, what is he 1-21 in his last 22?
No, he was 1-17, but he won all three last week. So he's where's that put him at? 4-17 his last 21.
If he was if he was working professionally for a gambling site, he probably would have been fired by now.
I wouldn't be going. He has a good history of picking games, but the last 6 or so weeks haven't been so good to him.
Oh no, they have not. Does Correa not signing with the Mets affect them that much? Would you say?
I think it makes them worse in the immediate. We'll see what Beatty is, and I would expect Escobar to be better for them. But yeah, the immediate Carlos Correa is. I know there's a lot of concern about the long term condition of his leg and his ankle, but he's got the metal plate in there. But I mean, in the here and now, Correa is a perennial All Star player, and not having him, I think you're a little worse off.
Yeah, it's a big get for Minnesota. I'm happy as a Yankees fan because I didn't want to have to deal with that. Because just dealing with the Mets fans complaining about how they spent all this money not to win a playoff game again, but it's a little hot take.
Yeah, yeah, that would be strong if they didn't win a playoff game. But yeah, I listen. I think when you spend that kind of money, there are expectations, and I think Mets fans. I think if things don't go the way they want, they don't at least win a series or two. I think that there'll be some problems. I think.
And I think Showalter's a good manager. I just think that roster is a little bit. I think they overachieved last year. I think there's gonna be some regression because I also have my doubts about Verlander and Scherzer at the top. As good as those pitchers are, they're ace caliber pitchers, but they're old, and history shows that older pitchers don't exactly hold up too much, especially the power ones.
Yeah, but they didn't have DeGrom for a large portion of the season last year. They went through their fair share of injuries last year, so I mean those guys have a pretty good history of holding up as best they can. You know, maybe not 32 starts, but they're usually up there. And Verlander's durable, so they're short term deals. So yeah, I don't blame you. I mean, guys that are 40 or approaching 40, but you know, Randy Johnson has had stood seasons before when he's up there at that age, and it's been done before. But yeah, I think there are people that share that sentiment that you have.
That's true. Randy Johnson was a completely different pre. I just think what Verlander is, he struggled in October last year as the season went on. He got kind of worse. So that's my only concern. And Scherzer was really bad in September last year in October. That's my only concern for the both of those guys is that they weren't entirely healthy when they needed them to be healthy the most. And that's where it's like they'll probably have very good regular seasons, but if you're the Mets, I would be concerned with going into battle in October with those guys being that old.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, Verlander's not the greatest postseason pitcher, but yeah, regular season. I mean, he is lights out. He didn't pitch for 2 years, so he came back pretty. He came back pretty fresh.
Yeah. Um, Here's an interesting question. I know this one hits home to Rick, but as in general, it's been a big topic. Who do you think is the Jets starting quarterback next year, and what are the chances Zach Wilson is on the team?
I think Wilson could be on the team, but I think it's Garoppolo. I think he fits what they're looking for, and I only say that just because Salah and Douglas, for that matter, because Salah's there. They've taken an interest in a lot of former 49ers. It's kind of what Salah does, and I think you need guys like that to kind of preach your message. He unifies the locker room, so I hear. Like Quan Alexander, DJ Reed, former Niner, Solomon Thomas, former Niner, Laken Tomlinson, former Niner. So I think it kind of brings in exactly what they want to do. And Michael Floor, if he sticks around, that's a guy that's run the offense, the exact offense he wants to run. And you heard the message out of Jets camp early: just kind of be boring, make the plays that need to be made. Jimmy can do that. Jimmy certainly can do that.
So if you had to take stock in one coach for the next 10 years of between Brian Dable and Robert Sala, who are you taking? I'm not a big Sala guy. I think that there's certain things that he's created that he could have avoided that is made worse on himself and the team. And Brian Dable is, in my opinion, the coach of the year. So I'll lean Dable, but I want to hear what you want to have to say.
Yeah, I'd have to go Dable just because I think Josh Allen's not quite as sharp too. I know Allen's battled through an injury, but not having Dable there, I think, is a little bit noticeable for that Bills offense. And he's an offensive guy. It's an offensive league. So, and you can't deny what he's done with the Giants. That team is bereft of talent all over the place. So you can only point to the coaching. And I mean, the players have earned what they've gotten this year. But coaching's a big difference between last year and this year. It's a lot of the same guys, right? So it's hard not to say Dable.
Yeah, I mean, I was never expecting. I don't think anyone was expecting this season out of the Giants. It's probably one of the most unexpected seasons in recent New York sports history. I would
Yeah, I
say
don't think that's crazy.
I would say it's probably on line with the 2020 Knicks, just because the team didn't really have much talent and they were the 4 seed. But I still think the coaching job that Dable's done might be a top 10 in NFL history, taking that team to the playoffs.
Yeah, to get to that point, top 10 history, you probably have to win some games in the playoffs, but definitely impressive.
Well, I think they got one this week, so
That would help. That would help his cause.
do you think, speaking of more on the Giants, do you think Daniel Jones is the guy there? And do you think he could be a top 10 quarterback in the league at one point in his career?
He could probably be a back end top 10 guy for a couple of seasons, if he's got a fair shake and some guys to work with. But yeah, I think he's a guy because I think they've played themselves out of any other options. Really, I mean, they're not going to have the high draft pick to go get somebody, and I think they need each other right now. I think if the Giants had a bad season, they would have moved on, but they're not going to have they're not going to have a very favorable pick in terms of drafting a quarterback in the first round. So, I mean, then I mean, you're going to turn to the free agent market. You're going to go after Derek Carr, Jimmy Garoppolo. I don't think so. So I think it's a nice, maybe not super long term, but for the next couple of years, I think that's a nice marriage that I would expect to happen in the offseason.
I always thought with Jones, and this is just my personal opinion, that the talent was always there. I think anyone that watches him, he's a very talented quarterback. He's got the arm strength, he's very athletic. I always thought the biggest thing with Jones was his processing. And that I also think Jason Garrett might be one of the worst offensive minds in the league. There's a reason why he's on NBC right now. So I personally think the thing with Jones was always could he get the right coaching around him and if he could process the right way. And I think the processing has been the biggest improvement in his game this year. And he's shown why he's a good quarterback.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that's a good point. And a lot of that probably comes to coaching, right? I mean, you can see the growth. You can see the growth in the numbers, but just by watching them, it looks different.
There's not. I've always said this too. I think people judge quarterbacks in certain ways where they're bigger than the team at times, but I think everything has to be right for a perfect quarterback situation to succeed. You have to have the right coach. You have to have the right weapons. I always look at Patrick Mahomes. Everyone knows how good he is, but I also think there's a lot of that Andy Reid and Travis Kelce don't get enough credit for how good they actually are. That helps Patrick Mahomes be that dynamic.
Yeah, I mean, no one's going to do it by themselves in the NFL. You show me a quarterback on an island by themselves, I'll probably show you a team with a losing record.
I'd say the only one that's been able to really overcome coaching is Aaron Rodgers, because I was never a big Mike McCarthy guy. I always thought that he didn't help them win, and I'm not a big LaFleur guy either. I don't think he's been great, but I'd say that's the only one I've seen an example of. But even then, Rodgers had weapons galore his whole time in Green Bay. How's that of this year?
Yeah, but McCarthy's had success in Dallas. I mean, they're not winning a ton of playoff games. I get that, but they're winning double digit games. I mean, that does mean something.
That's true. I also just think Dallas's roster is so talented that it's hard not to win with them.
Yeah, but a lot of people, Dak is not their guy. So I mean, some people would say they get to this point in spite of him. I mean, I'm not a huge McCarthy guy either, but he did win with Cooper Rush early in the year. I mean, I know it's kind of gone sour since then, but I think he does deserve at least a little bit of credit for that.
But I always thought look too. I think Dan Quinn's made the big difference there. Like they were a disaster his first year. I understand that Dak was hurt, but they were really a disaster his first year there. I mean, in big games they haven't really shown up. They've struggled. They constantly play down. The Houston game's one of those where I'm like, if they were a competent coaching staff, they would have blown Houston out. Houston had really no business being in that game. So certain things where I'm like, okay, he's not bad, but I don't think he's a very good coach.
Yeah, I think a lot of people would. The Houston loss is tough. You're right. There's no real argument to make for that one.
All right. My last question is, what would you say is your outlook for the playoffs? What do you think's the Super Bowl, and who's going to win the Super Bowl?
Oh, I think it's a Niners Chiefs rematch, and my heart says the Niners, but the last two times they've played the Chiefs, it's not gone their way. I do think. Listen, if this matchup happens, I'll be rooting every day of the week for the and every minute of that Sunday for the Niners. But I think one way or another, I think Mahomes finds a way to get a second ring this year.
I'm. I think the thing with the playoffs this year is it's so wide open. It feels compared to years past, where it's like there's three teams in the AFC where you could really make a case for, and there's a few teams in the NFC where there's some sleeper teams. There's really good coaching that you can make a case for. I'd say the Niners are the best team in the NFC right now, but Dallas could beat them on any given week. Philly, I think, could beat them on any given week. It's the same way where I don't think the Chiefs are necessarily the best team in the AFC. I think Cincinnati has their number, and if they play, I don't think they want a single part of Cincinnati. And I think Buffalo and at a neutral site, it makes a difference for them because Bills Mafia travels better than anyone. They travel like Yankee fans, really. So I'd say I think it's going to be a Buffalo or Cincinnati out of the AFC. And I'm going to go with a 49ers Giants NFC championship game.
Wow, that would be something, huh?
Hopefully, you guys don't muff the punt this time.
That happened twice. It was not a good day.
It's that's a, the thing with the Giants is they've never made it easy. Where the game against Green Bay, Tynes missed the field goal twice, and it's that's classic Giants for you.
They've played some classics, no doubt about that.
And then I I lied. I have one more question. What do you think's the outlook for the Knicks on the rest of the season?
It's funny. I was looking at it today. The Knicks, that 2020 season you mentioned, at this point they're halfway through the year, exactly halfway through the year, right now, and they're a little above a couple of games above 500. Well, I think they're 3 games up. They were exactly 500 that 2020 year, and they got red hot at the end of the year, and they went 16-4, and that's how they ended up in the fourth seed. I'm not saying that'll happen this year, but the second half of the season you could really mesh. I mean, or you could go the other way. Things don't mesh, but they'll get RJ Barrett back. I think they could be a 6 seed. I mean, I'm more realistically they probably end up in the 7 or 8, but I think they can find themselves in that field of 8 once the play in works itself out. And yeah, after that, I mean, I don't know. Are they conceding home court advantage to a Milwaukee or a Brooklyn or something like that, and finding a way to win that series? I doubt it. But Brunson's just brought so much energy and scoring and leadership, and he's someone that can get them into their sets and guide the offense. And I don't hate watching them. I will say that.
Yeah. Are you a Tom Thibodeau guy, or do you think he's one of the reasons why on certain nights they struggle?
I think he deserves a lot of credit for getting them organized. I mean, Knicks fans complained for a long time that they needed a real coach, someone that the players respected. And this is year 3 for him, and I think he's done that. Do they have limitations? Yeah, I think Tom Thibodeau teams have, they burn out a little bit. You see that where he shortens his bench to a 9-man rotation. I think as the year goes on, you play 82 games, and that shows itself. Um, but I think he is a good coach, and I think those guys play for him.
I do. But I also think there's certain situations where I don't know how. Like I've always said this, Thibodeau's good, but I feel like Tom Thibodeau has an expiration date as a head coach. Where
Maybe, but who you get after that is, I mean, it's tough to take a big step up, I guess, because if you get rid of him, it probably means you've underachieved. And then where do you go? I guess is the question.
but I also think that Leon Rose is someone that should be held accountable. His big thing was to bring in stars, and right now the two biggest guys he's brought in are Julius Randle, who to give credit to, he's been playing out of his mind lately, and Jalen Brunson, but he's not. Like they could have had Donovan Mitchell too, and I think that's a big loss. That I mean, it looked like Mitchell wanted to be a Knick. I think you could have parted ways with RJ Barrett, and to get a guy like Mitchell who just scored 71 points. You need to win with stars in the NBA, and I think that's been Leon Rose's biggest blunder so far.
Yeah, not getting Mitchell. I think that's when they if they don't regret already, that's a tough one.
As Mitchell's gone to the Cavs, and I'm a big Donovan Mitchell guy. He's an elite NBA scorer. He's a great player, and it hurts a little bit that he wasn't on the Knicks.
It sure does.
All right. Thank you for everything, RJ. You're a great interview, a great host. Tune into DPHO on Rothenberg 6 to 10. I'm not going to make you sing the jingle this time,
Well, thank you.
but thank you so much for doing this. It was a blast.
No problem, Dan. Great to be with you, man.
Have a good one.
You too.
That was the great RJ Santillo. I'll see you guys next time. RJ, you have any closing remarks?
Oh, keep listening to Dan. He's a good man.
And keep listening to RJ. 6 to 10. Did it happen in Florida? It's going to be a good one tomorrow. Have a good one.
You too.
Thank you. All right. Let me just.